So if you are looking at trying to make use of this strategy, flowchart your point sentence, you've probably already been using the strategy self-question your point sentence, which is a strategy which helps you break your point sentence down into logical subpoints, each of which needs to be proved. So the total of proving of all those proves your main point sentence. Remember that one of the most powerful habits we can get into as a writer is to always be looking from the perspective of a reader and asking ourselves questions. So let's just review the structure of an argument that we're going to put this in the context of. We start with a thesis statement, the thing we want to prove, and then we break that thesis statement down into the separate arguments that will prove it, and then we reinforce the thesis at the end. Each of those arguments is a body paragraph, and each of those arguments will consist of something that we claim to prove, a point. And we learned with the self-question your point sentence strategy that we can break that down into all the little sub-points that need to be proved in order to prove the bigger point, with some evidence and an explanation and a summary for each one. So remember, in the self-question your point sentence, we used this point sentence from an argument body paragraph of a grade 10 student and a social justice essay. A lack of recognition that native South Africans were of equal value to whites led to acceptance of the denial of their basic human rights. And using the self-question, what smaller claims are embedded in this bigger claim, we found that there were three. So we said that our subpoints in this paragraph would be, first of all, native South Africans were not recognized. Secondly, white South Africans accepted the denial of basic human rights to the native community. And thirdly, it was the lack of recognition that caused this. But can we make this sequence of logic even a little bit tighter? And I think using flowcharting, we actually can. So let's put it into why a flowchart? First of all, before we put it into the flowchart, why a flowchart? Because a flowchart can make the sequence really obvious. The sequence can be in time, or it can be in what causes what. Let's have a look at the flowchart with our last three subpoints, and we have them sitting there. And once we've got them in that, we can ask ourselves, firstly, what's the logical sequence? And it's a sequence in time, mainly. So the lack of recognition came before the acceptance of the denial of basic human rights, and then we link that all together with the cause thing around the idea that recognition was the cause. But is there anything missing in this logic? And actually, if we look at it carefully, there is. We're talking about the fact that there was a denial of human rights and that white South Africans accepted that before we've even told our reader what was denied. So I think we need to place something in the middle here that makes sure our reader knows there was a denial before we talk about how white South Africans accepted it. So we could add something into the sequence like the nationalist government denied native South Africans their basic human rights. If we do that, then we don't need to repeat the denial of basic human rights to the native community and all that information in the third subpoint. We can make it a little simpler along these lines. And then we have a nice logical flow of native South Africans were not recognized, the government denied them their rights, white South Africans accepted that denial, and we link it together. That was all flowing in time. This happened, then this happened, then this happened, and we link it together with then the cause was the lack of recognition that we started with, okay? Each paragraph will once again need some evidence each subpoint will once again need some evidence. You'll need to explain how that evidence proves your subpoint, and then we'll wrap it up with a summary sentence for the end of the paragraph. So if we go back to our model of the argument, what we've added to our model is the idea that the subpoints in each body paragraph need to be in the most logical sequence possible. Okay, if you've got that logical sequence really happening, one of the next strategies you might want to work on is called a given to new pattern, and that strategy actually allows you then to make sure that every single sentence in your paragraph connects back tightly to what has gone before.